Well, Cole, thank you for hopping on to Sermondo. This Sermondo podcast is where we interview the world's leading B2B tech experts. And today we have Cole Furrh of InterTeam Marketing. Can you just give us kind of your background, Cole, who you are, what you do, and who you serve?
Yeah, for sure. So, as you said, I'm the founder of InterTeam Marketing. We're a ad agency for B2B SaaS companies. The bulk of what we do is Google, LinkedIn, Reddit, Meta, and Bing. Historically, more Google than the others, but recently, a lot of LinkedIn and Reddit ads.
So what kind of got you into the B2B tech industry, Cole? Like what got you into the advertising industry? How did you land where you're at right now?
Yeah, so I was lucky enough right out of college to get a job with a woman who was a classic Google Ads specialist. Like she was running Google Ads in, I think, 2011, which I think is just a few years after the system came out. So really learned a lot about the platform. As I said, like really classical manual CPC approach to the platform, which is hard to get nowadays. After that, ended up at another agency that specialized in B2B SaaS. The agency was actually acquired by a big agency in New York, Tactical, and the founder of that agency is now Alex Hormozy's head of marketing. Yeah, they were very, very good. I mean, he in particular was just like a master of B2B marketing. Ended up branching out after the acquisition, starting my own agency and taking what I learned from him and adding a more, I would say, analytical, like data-driven element to it that is crushing even more.
Awesome. Awesome. And so part of your approach is kind of, I guess, using different platforms based off of your clientele and advertising, running paid ads for those platforms. How do you select which platform you kind of run ads for a client?
Yeah, so it depends on what the service is, right? Higher ticket services will typically recommend LinkedIn, especially if it's enterprise focused. It's the best platform for targeting enterprise companies and also for companies that have a very defined niche. If there's a lot of search volume, we'll do Google. For some products, the entire category might be relatively new, so people might not actually be searching for it. In that case, search doesn't really make sense. Yeah, it really just depends on where the audience lives, right? Recently, like I said, we've been doing a lot more Reddit ads, and that's a pretty unique platform because you can actually see the little enclaves where different audiences engage, right? So if there's an active Reddit audience, we consider that platform too.
Yeah, talk to me about Reddit. So I think a lot of people are familiar with running Google ads, Facebook ads, maybe even LinkedIn ads, more people know, but I think very few people are actually running Reddit ads and running them effectively. What's the lay of the land that you would give to someone if they come to you and they say, Cole, I'm interested in Reddit ads. I've heard about them. How do you kind of give them an introduction to the platform?
Yeah, so I think a good starting place is determining whether or not your audience lives there. Because for some products or industries, they don't. Redditors are very unique, but luckily there's a really easy test. What I recommend brands do is you take your most qualified keyword, go to Google, type that keyword into Google, and then add Reddit at the end of it. So what it'll end up showing is a bunch of conversations from Reddit related to that term. If those conversations seem relevant, then your audience might be there. If most of those conversations seem like they're coming from certain communities, then that's where you're going to want to look first.
Are there any specific industries or I guess products or services or company types that work particularly well on Reddit or any that don't work that well on Reddit that you've seen?
Yeah. I mean, we've tested Reddit for, I think, probably 10 brands at this point, maybe a bit more. And I would say we've had success with almost every brand that we've tested it with. So I'll just list off a few niches that we've seen good results from. Development, targeting developers specifically. It's a bunch of different subreddits related to different developer communities like job listings for developers, agencies, listings related to networking and IT, system admin communities. You can get a lot of leads from that community. I'll tell you that for sure. We tested that for probably 3 or 4 different brands. Sales, that performs very well. Logistics, manufacturing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just a few. I would have to think of other industries.
So how do you, like, when you're running a paid ad campaign on Reddit, how do you measure the success of those ads on Reddit versus something like Google or Facebook or LinkedIn? How does that differ? And how does the platform itself change the way that you look at that, I guess?
Yeah, so success is going to be measured. I mean, we measure the success of all of our platforms with basically the same metrics. The bottom line is leads, in particular qualified leads, right? We want to send our clients leads that they're happy about, not leads that waste their time and make them want to throw their computer out their window. So yeah, it's a matter of just getting the right tracking set up so you can attribute leads that are coming from Reddit or leads that come into your CRM to Reddit. The tricky thing about Reddit, to answer the second part of your question, is most people don't click on ads in the platform. Probably won't surprise you to find out that Redditors hate ads. That
Right.
doesn't mean that ads don't still impact them, though. What we see is a lot of view-through conversions. But the tricky thing about view-through conversions is they will not have UTM parameters attached to that page visit because you get the parameters by clicking the ad. So
Right. Right. So the tracking is, I guess, maybe a little bit less specific, right? So you're not exactly able to see, like, this person saw this ad, clicked on this ad, and then kind of view the tracking that way. What's a good way to measure that sort of success using those types of ad formats that you use on Reddit?
yeah, so there's a couple of things that are important. First, you can't fixate too much on CRM based tracking. It's just never going to work, right? You need to use ad platform tracking. You need to be sending as much supplementary data as possible back into the platforms so that they can connect leads with clicks from your ads or for users that you're targeting. It came back to me. So the last thing that
You're
you
good.
really want to monitor is branded search, right? Because what ends up happening, Reddit has a lot of desktop traffic, which is great. Desktop traffic converts at a usually X higher rate than mobile. What ends up happening is people see the ad, don't click it, go into their browser, type in your brand name, and find you on Google. So being able to increase in paid spend with increases in branded search is really important.
Yeah, so it sounds like with Reddit especially, you can't shoot blind. Like, you have to make sure that your tracking conversions are properly attributed from the get-go, or else you won't know if what you're doing is working, right? Because it's not going to draw those lines for you.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to be I think you just have to be realistic about the limitations, right? Like, it's great when you're running Google Ads and you can see every lead in HubSpot has Google Ads as the original source because they clicked the ad, but it's just not going to happen with Reddit. So,
Where does Reddit kind of sit in the stack of the ad stack, right? So do you recommend that brands are already advertising on, like, let's say Google, Meta, LinkedIn, and then they add Reddit? Is it like a supplementary, or where does it kind of sit in that suite of budget?
yeah, it works very well as a supplementary ad platform, especially if you get retargeting going. It's probably the best, sorry, I'll rephrase. It's probably the most efficient retargeting platform out there for B2B SaaS
Yeah.
because the clicks are so cheap and the quality of traffic that you receive if you're approaching the platform the right way can be so high.
And what sorts of calls to action are you kind of putting on the ads in order to get people to kind of take action on the ads themselves? Are you telling them to book a call? Are you telling them to put in their name, and email, phone number? Are you like, what's the messaging on the actual ads themselves usually on these sorts of campaigns?
Yeah, it's a great question. We use different calls to action for different parts of the funnel. So, top of funnel, we rarely use anything aggressive. I would say the most aggressive call to action we'll use is sign up, but frankly, we rarely see good results from even that on the top of funnel. Top of funnel will usually use learn more or will use no call to action.
And that also tends to perform for
Yeah,
the
yeah, but like I said, no one clicks the ads anyway. So you're just what happens is people see it, they're less thrown off because it's not quite as obvious that it's an ad, and they go do research on their own. That's why they're on Reddit to begin with.
so it's like renting out like a banner, like an old school banner on like a search platform or on like a highway banner or something like that. Something like it's like an awareness play, would you say? Or how does it kind of?
It can be. I would just add, like, retargeting, we do go more aggressive. My favorite is sign up, though. Like, I find depends on the niche you're targeting, but I find like people are more open to more informational content on Reddit. But you can promote that content more aggressively with retargeting, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
To your point about the awareness play, yeah. One other thing that I think a misconception that people have about Reddit is that the traffic is the same throughout the platform, right? So there's two different areas of Reddit. There's the feed, where you can go to the community and see the different types of conversations that people are posting in that community. The traffic that exists in that area of Reddit is all like native users, people who use the platform every day. The traffic that comes to individual conversations is very different. That's where all of the AI referral traffic comes through. It's where all of the organic search traffic comes through. I know Reddit is at least top 5 in both of those categories in the world, but in those areas in particular, very much an awareness play, right? Because a lot of the times, the traffic coming through those two referral sources is really high intent. It's people who are like typing out questions.
Yeah, and Reddit is being cited very highly, like you mentioned before, in search and in AI search. So how should a brand get started in this field? Like what budgets should they set aside? Kind of initiatives should they plan for? Should they be on organic Reddit already? Should they just jump right into paid? If they're thinking, okay, I want to get in front of my ideal target avatar, and I think that some of them are being referred through, either ChatGPT or just even through Google into Reddit, and I want to be visible there. What's the game plan that you usually lay out?
Yeah, so I usually recommend around 3 to 5K budget for Reddit. Uh, I don't typically recommend it as your first platform, and I would recommend companies pursue the platform if they've already nailed at least one organic lead source. Right? I don't recommend paid ads to any company that hasn't at least nailed SEO, social, or outreach. Should they be organically posting in Reddit? Ideally, yes. It'll definitely improve your results. What I would recommend, though, because actually creating posts in Reddit is a little bit tricky. The audience is very different than LinkedIn. Commenting goes a long way, though. Just start commenting and answering questions.
Yeah, and I believe that you actually did that too, right? In partnership, in tandem with Reddit themselves. You had like an initiative I think we've talked about before. Can you kind of just dig into that a little bit about how even Reddit itself as a platform, how they use their own platform and talk to their own community, that dynamic that happens there?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we were approached by Reddit for Business, which does, as you said, a lot of work with like promoting people who are advertising on Reddit in a very like Reddit native way, if that makes sense. We were approached by their team to do an AMA, which for people who don't know stands for Ask Me Anything. It's a native Reddit Q&A format where subject matter experts are just either important people or people from certain communities want to hear from, create a thread, and within the thread, anyone can ask that person a question and they'll respond. So they reached out to us about doing one. We were the first non-Reddit employees to do an AMA with Reddit for Business, and it was a lot of fun. I think we got like 50 questions, and they were very technical. It took me a long time to answer them.
So people are curious, and there's kind of, I guess, a gap between what people know about Reddit and how they can advertise on Reddit and what is actually possible. What are the biggest mistakes that you see brands making when they're maybe looking to get into advertising on Reddit or when they're actually advertising on Reddit? What are things that you see people doing wrong that you're like, whoa, need to turn, make a change there?
Yeah, I think the biggest mistake you can make when advertising on Reddit is to target broadly. Like any platform, the platform itself, Reddit advises you to use very limited targeting so that you'll spend your budget. But what's worked for us is really honing in on the right communities and prioritizing spend in the right places. If you're doing retargeting or if you have enough website visitors to run effective retargeting, you'll want to prioritize a lot of spend there. And in the top of funnel, like I said, the actual conversation placements perform better for awareness, right? So just making sure you're spending your budget effectively.
Yeah. And you mentioned before, like comments are really helpful too, like from an organic perspective. Are there any other types of content that you see, either organic or paid ads content, that performs really well, like messaging wise? Do you see that there's any either formats or kind of, I guess, angles that people take that are especially resonant across communities inside of Reddit?
Yeah, I can speak to that on the ad side of things. We've actually done analysis on this. So we took every ad account that we've ever run and broke out performance by ad type. So we actually looked at how carousels perform versus images versus videos. Carousels are the best format by far. So
Yeah,
just
so carousels win.
run carousels.
Run carousels.
Yeah, easy. And like it wasn't even close. I mean, I think the second place, I guess one caveat would be like this is slightly dependent on how good your creatives are. Like if you've got awesome video creatives, they'll probably beat any carousel, right? But on average, our carousels were nearly X higher performing than other ad formats.
So carousels on Reddit. So people are you're putting out an ad carousel and people are swiping through, and the engagement on that is high.
Yeah, well, all metrics are very high, like especially leads, which is once again all we really care about. Cost per lead was like half what it was on other formats.
Wow,
Yeah.
it's pretty significant.
Yeah, it's crazy. And the great thing about carousels is it's pretty easy to template that. One thing we'll do that we can pretty much do for any client is just make testimonial carousels, just quotes about how awesome your product is.
So you basically run those testimonial carousel creatives on Reddit as ads, and you're finding that those are performing pretty well.
Yeah, it's just social proof.
Makes sense on a platform like Reddit.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, and I guess just to expand on that, because people might not know this, like Reddit's a review platform. So that's why it makes sense. You could be showing reviews when people are searching for reviews.
Exactly. And so where do you see the direction of Reddit going? Do you see it trending upwards in terms of how directly mainstream it's becoming as an ad platform? Or do you always see it as something that's going to be used within a diversified mix of paid platforms? Or how do you see that kind of sitting in the future? Like, as people use more AI, do you think it'll be cited more? Or do you think it's kind of like something that's a consistent player? Where does it sit for you?
Yeah, I think it peaked in terms of citations about a year ago. And there's been a certain level of course correction there, which is typical for new medium like AI. Search went through the same thing many years ago. But it's still like we're talking about going from 10% of all citations to still being the leading citation provider at like 1%, right? It was overinflated a year ago. I foresee it maintaining its citation share, I don't know what the term is there. And I also foresee the platform itself having more and more native users. Like if you look at site visitors in platforms like Ahrefs or SpyFu, it's like the Reddit graph is just a hockey stick for years. So,
Yeah, it's continuing to trend that way. And so do you have any other kind of, just more broadly from a paid ads perspective, do you have any overarching advice for brands right now as we're in 2026 and beyond for how they should be spending their marketing dollars to really hit the right target audiences and get the best qualified leads possible at the best costs. Do you have any approaches that you and your team take, whether it be inside of Reddit or outside of it, that you'd like to share?
Yeah, retargeting. Retarget everywhere you can and invest in quality tracking. Like we've recently, I mean, really over the last year, we've invested a lot of time and money into server side tracking because browser based tracking is becoming more and more difficult as both the browsers and devices add more limitations to pixel tracking. Invest in server side tracking and get somebody that knows what they're doing so that you can retarget everyone that visits your site on all possible platforms for as long as possible.
And speaking of people who know what they're doing, where can people find you, Cole? And where are you the most active so people can reach out to you if they want to have some help with Reddit or just overall with paid ads?
Yeah, so definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll provide you with with our URL, Chris. I guess that'll be in the description.
Yeah, we'll put that in the description for people.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. I would say LinkedIn is probably where we're most active in terms of social media. Also, Reddit for Business. We're frequent contributors there. So check us out there. And then we've also got a blog on our website, which I'll give you a link to as well.
Sweet. Awesome. Thank you so much, Cole. It was great speaking with you.